Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab as I tip my, I guess it's not a cap, but my golf cap, as I would say. Tip it to those South Carolina State Bulldogs. They are doing some pretty good work on the tennis courts out there, holding their own. Welcome to episode 379 inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that is covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment. He has checked in, but he keeps sending these texts and saying he's here and there. And I don't recognize the name of some of these cities. So it's like, but you know.
He's in Zamunda.
Right. Last night I did go get to check out the final game of the Final Four NCAA so we can really transition to baseball, softball, and other sports as we close out this academic year. Charles was out there doing his thing, sitting in the media row, looking real media friendly, if you would say, in terms of what he was going on. But I had my little HBCU Sports Lab shirt, cap on as I went out there. And it's amazing how many people are connected with HBCU sports, and they acknowledge that, and they can't wait to shout out what school HBCU attended. I always pay homage, so it's always good. So I did want to kind of tie in from that perspective. I got to take Deuce in there Thursday with semifinals. He said he wanted to go to Final Four. Shout out to Granger, helping me get that gift with the assist as the quintessential point guard that can score and obviously assist. He assisted with that. Shout out to him, having a huge week with the home game, that kind of stuff. We'll get in a little more about how that went for those around there. I was able to get to the HBCU All-Star game on Sunday. Really was a showcase. A lot of folks there. In that HBCU paraphernalia, you represent schools, saw MEAC, SWAC, SIAC, even some people, GCAC, obviously CIAA. So it was unique. You know, you've seen significant crowds in the H&P arena, but I'm not sure if I ever seen crowds with that diversity in terms of HBCU. Senior, general, normal fans from obviously Texas Southern fans. You also seen Grambling Southern fans that you normally see, but they come for their particular day, Jackson State. But you also saw all of them there at the same time, among other fans. So that was pretty cool when you see all that represented, what took place there. With that, before I go any further and I get to you all, in regards to your news of the day, I wanted to step out there. I was excited about this, part of this, support this. Obviously, kudos to Roy, our president and CEO of Black College Sports Network. The SIA Inc.'s exclusive spring sports championship broadcast deal with Black College Sports Network. This is from the SIAC, I should say, .com. The SIAC and the Black College Sports Network, you can also go to Black College Sports Network as the release is there as well. I've reached an agreement that will feature 2023 cricket SIAC track and field, baseball and softball championship events. Was able to see the commissioner as he was here doing the Saturday, Sunday events. He was here all week, I should really say, but I got to cross paths with him on Sunday. Told him thank you, appreciate that. By Anthony Holloman. Was really excited about this opportunity. He said, hey, I told you, we're going to get it done. So, quote, we're delighted in the BCSN's willingness to spotlight our talented student athletes and member institutions and the continued support of SIAC programs, end quote, said by SIAC Commissioner Anthony Holloman. As a commission, it is my desire to spotlight every sponsor sport this league offers to our vast fan base who desire to support these student athletes and programs, end quote. Very well done there. As said by Roy, quote, BCSN has always believed in the SIAC sports product. For over 20 years, we have broadcast and produced thousands of events, most at little to no cost to the institution, end quote. To Roy M. Evans, II, President and CEO of Black College Sports Network. Quote, our goal is to promote and feature HBCU sports and culture and history, and we will always do that. As we begin our 25th anniversary year of BCSN, we are excited to again partner with the SIAC to bring 12 straight days of SIAC sports coverage to the spring championships, end quote. Well said by both. Just for the record, the SIAC, and that's the 2023 Cricket SIAC Track and Field Championship on the campus of Morehouse College on April 27th to the 29th. The championship coverage will begin with the 2023 Cricket SIAC Baseball and Softball Championships. That will begin on Tuesday, May the 2nd. We'll conclude with the championship game on Thursday, May the 4th. Championship tournaments will be held in Gordon Sports Complex in Albany, Georgia. More information about the 2023 Cricket SIAC Softball Tournament can be found here. The spring championship coverage will conclude with the 2023 Cricket SIAC Baseball Championship Tournament. The free agent tournament will feature the top 18 from the league and will begin on Thursday, May the 4th. It'll conclude with championships games on Sunday, May the 7th on the West Campus of Albany State University. So obviously you can get more information, 2023 Cricket SIAC Baseball Championship Tournament. You can go to the website and check that out. Coverage will be available on BCSN platforms and SIAC platforms as well. So kudos to the BCSN team, especially to Roy Evans getting that done and all the work there. Shout out to that. With that being said, let me go to you, Charles. What's some news on your side that has you sided with HBCU sports as we get into the grind, man?
Well, I wanted to offer kudos to Black College Sports Network for inking that deal with the SIAC. That was going to be one of my big news stories that happened on March 31st this past Friday. And to get an opportunity to talk about it, and still very newsworthy, kudos to Black College Sports Network to be able to put on a great product that is the SIAC baseball tournament. Let me point out some things that are trending right now with regards to HBCU news, and that comes to us from the Black College, from HBCUsports.com. But let's take a look at it. If you remember, Dr. Cavil, the umpire who made the egregious call against Mississippi Valley State in that baseball game a week and a half ago, he was on a podcast. He expresses some regret for letting his emotions get involved with regards to that game. I have my own thoughts in that regards, but that is currently what's trending. You had a pair of HBCU basketball players. They declared for the WNBA Draft, and that was pretty significant when you take a look at those WNBA players. When you take a look at it, the players who are number one, Jasmine Harris of North Carolina A&T. And you also have Ayanna Emanuel, who formerly played at Alabama A&M. She declared for the WNBA Draft. So especially with all this talk, especially the weekend that the women's college basketball game had, it definitely wanted to bring those two things out. Of course, Dr. Bill, you mentioned the HBCU All-Star game that was here at Texas Southern this weekend. Busy weekend for us here in Houston. You had the Final Four. You had a lot of events around that. But Joe Bryant, he was a lone HBCU player at the Final Four All-Star game, and he won MVP honors. So definitely wanted to make mention in regards to that. So that was pretty significant. Really busy weekend for us here in Houston. Can't say enough about, and I'm sure we'll get into it, talking about the HBCU All-Star game. The line literally was If you're familiar with the H&PE Arena, it was all the way down the ramp and around the corner. So it was a tremendous success, tremendous event. And you take your hat off to Travis Williams and all those who put that together. And to Dr. Kevin Granger, to be the host institution, host facility, first-class event all the way around.
Yeah, I'm doing some analysis on the financial exposure that it had for Texas Southern University associated with CBS and week-long events. Obviously, first time for HBCU to be one of the host institutions. There were 4 of them that partnered to host the Final Four in Houston. You had University of Houston, Rice University, what was Houston Baptist University, now Houston Christian University, HCU, and HBCU, as we know, right here in the heart of things, Texas Southern University. So that was tremendous to see that take place. Before I go to AD Drew and ask him to give a synopsis of some of the high points that he wanted to talk about this week in HBCU sports, I did want to go back to one of the things when you said about the Umpire Mississippi Valley podcast. I did not listen to the podcast, but I read the update on HBCU sports, and I trust in terms of how they delivered, and they used quotes. You were kind in regards to saying that he took a little bit of responsibility.
Very kind.
But I was like, man, he blamed it on everybody else.
Yeah. I'll be honest about that. You know, it seemed like I got,
but I saw you took the high road, and it's short. You took the high road, at least on screen. I'll tell you what he does behind. Never mind. That wasn't supposed to come out loud. AD Drew, what type of HBCU news do you want to talk about today?
You expect me to follow that up, Doc?
But you know, Drew. I have my bad character points sometimes.
You really expect me to follow that up with some news, Dr. Cavil, man?
Hey, you can handle it. You know, this professors, you know what I'm saying? You got to give out your F squares. You do what you got to do.
I got you. No, actually, I want to kind of go off the path. I want to do a couple more comments about BCSN with the SIAC. Sure. And then I want to take about 2 minutes to ask you guys a question. If I can, but great job once again, like Charles said and you said, great job, Bob Roy, negotiating this deal with the SIAC. I have been to the SIAC baseball and softball championships. I've not been to the SIAC track championships in prior years. So just for the opportunity for us as a network to have the chance to do this and do this the right way. Not saying other people do it wrong, but I know what we have to offer and the opportunities that we have, not only for us as broadcasters, but for small businesses to get involved in this, because, you know, everybody always wants to go after the big checks, the 6-figure checks, the 5-figure checks. But, you know, BCSN has built its platform off of helping the small man advertise with these events. You see the commercials that we run during these segments. These aren't Fortune 500 companies that we are running. You know, we run mom and pop just as well as we run Fortune 500 companies. So just wanted to throw that out. Tremendous job by our CEO and fellow Rattler there, Roy Evans. Now, for the question, guys, can you guys just take a couple of moments and kind of describe the atmosphere that you guys were able to absorb while you were there, with the Final Four being in Houston, in your hometown, you know, in the arena, you know, just kind of for us who were not there, not only the NCAA Final Four, that atmosphere, but also the HBCU All-Star Game, and how that was really received from the people there. And we saw what happened on TV, but I need the inside info from both of you guys for the different events that you guys were part of.
Great question, Drew. I'm gonna let Charles jump out there first. Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and Dr. Bill touched on it initially. I had on my Inside the HBCU Sports Lab shirt on Saturday at the Final Four game. And I was taken back by the response. There are so many people who are involved either in behind the productions or in front of the camera who immediately gravitate to you in regards to seeing HBCU. And of course, I had the great fortune of some people that I knew there, and they were asking quite a few questions in regards to Jackson State and HBCU basketball in general, but very warm reception in terms of the HBCU presence within that Final Four platform here in Houston. The HBCU All-Star game, I can't say enough about it. Me and my wife both went to the game. And when I say Dr. Cavil touched on it with regards to the representation that you saw coming to that game, I saw individuals who represented the MEAC, the SWAC, of course, the SIAC, as well as the GCAC. It was a tremendous in terms of just looking at the representation to come out and support. And what jumped out at me was the marketing and the branding of that game itself. It really galvanized the community out here in Houston in terms of HBCU basketball, and to have the atmosphere of both the Ocean of Soul and the March and Storm both in the building. It added to the flavor. You had tremendous dignitaries there, not only the local Houston politicians, but Reverend Jesse Jackson. That was huge for me to actually meet Reverend Jesse Jackson. Ben Crump was in attendance. It was so well put together. And then just pivoting back to the Final Four, the next manned flight going to the moon was introduced at the Final Four this weekend. Huge moment for me for being, a space nerd that I am to see some of that. So it was a tremendous weekend in terms of the celebrities and everything that comes with the Final Four and the HBCU All-Star
game. Perfectly said by Charles. I'll add this component of it. Just to give you perspective, I had two lenses I was able to watch it from. Obviously, really three. One was kind of like all access, helping Texas Southern University athletic department behind the scene make sure that they warehouse the game on Sunday, utilizing the facility went well. Thank God I had my media pass and all access pass, so I got into the game relatively easy, just being able to show that full access. Obviously, I know the secret to parking, so parking was not an issue to me. I went to the back route to my parking spot, was able to ease on quite early.
That's my spot. Y'all can't charge me for that
one. Right. And so that was unique in regards to that perspective. But the event, as Charles said, was, first class. It was full packed with a lot of folks. So there's a lot of energy in it. A lot of pride going on in there. A really good job, as you saw on TV and can translate the way they really did a good job with the floor. And you heard by the all-star HBCU athletes, not only in that game, that they made sure that they felt really special. They had a bus that was wrapped with HBCU, so they hotel, and they got a lot of folks that they visited came by. On Saturday, many of the players got to go up to a suite for the Final Four game started on Saturday with the 4 teams. They had a suite in there, so they got to come to that game and visit the suite. They flew them in as they had an airline sponsorship in regards to what that looked like. So they were treated first class, which I think is important that HBCU athletes get that experience, especially when you have the ability to do that. I heard behind the scenes, CBS folks were extremely happy about the attendance in regards to how everything looked. And it was unique because even though you have the rivalry games in basketball, at least rarely have you seen both bands in attendance for a game, just because there's not enough room, particularly at Prairie View, so you don't see both bands in there. And so to open it up and see both bands kind of play each other because they give them a segment of time, that was a beautiful sight to see and unique in terms of that situation. Prairie View bands opened things up for that game. On Monday, CSU band did a matchup with now Houston resident Bun B. That's out of Port Arthur, UG. Kay, in regards to all of us that came up with that hip hop era, did a great job. He has a Trill Burger stand in there that he's promoting now. That is a really good burger. Shout out to Bun B. I'll give him that little plug here. He's always been a gentleman anytime I've come across him, particularly academically when he was teaching, lecturing, co-lecturing at Rice University a couple years ago. So that was fascinating to see that. Now, in terms of the events that are around, it was good. Houston is always tough to travel, but if you know when you use the rail, not a lot of it, but if you use the rail between those events downtown with the area, that was good. Getting in there, getting out. It was packed. A lot of folks were excited. Obviously, there were some people that were kind of down, thinking that there was a chance the University of Houston could get in the game. Certainly, if Texas had made it, that probably would have put a little different flavor. One thing I will add that was unique being in Houston, at the same time, you had the Astros doing their opening week, World Series champs. So they had the game there, and they still had full venues for that. So it was amazing. But a lot of folks on the off day from the NCAA Final Four, they were able to get the baseball game in. And you also had the Lakers coming in to see the Houston. So Houston is playing very good basketball in terms of the Rockets right now. But obviously Lakers, the brand itself, and the fact that they're fighting to see what they can do in the playoffs, that was well attended. So there were plenty of things to get your entertainment value on. And so, it was the place to be in a lot of ways. So great question. Hopefully I shared that and gave people a little plug on many different ways that you could entertain yourself. But that whole week was just full of events. So you got to choose whichever way you wanted to entertain yourself for the Final Four. So I'm sure everybody was happy here. Businesses, small businesses, as you talked about, particularly we like to put on, those businesses certainly made some money this weekend. With that, let's get into our first break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get into baseball because baseball was played here. And it was a rivalry week, as we talked about many of the games, but particularly you had Prairie View coming in to Texas Southern University. And while some people were sneaking over there in terms of the All-Star game, you had the third game of the set where the team split, right? And so it went off with a bang, but we'll kind of hold that for those that didn't hear the final score there or how it happened. We'll share that on the other side. We come right back after this first break.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant-quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Vanilla smoked sea salt seasoning is for seafood. The tarragon and fennel bring out the natural sweetness in seafood. I also use it in rice dishes, on yams, asparagus, blueberry pancakes, and believe it or not, chocolate chip cookies. Vanilla smoked sea salt adds a salty and savory component to sweet dishes that create a symphony for the tongue.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentjax.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I know I teach you a little bit about baseball, but I'm gonna ask you to wait just a little bit because we want to take a deeper dive. I wanted to make sure that, Siri's not dead. We're gonna give a little love to the women out here. And then I wanted to give some to Bryant and AD at SportsWrap, as AD does the rankings here. Remember, this is not a poll like you see us doing. This is digital analytics in terms of going in here with the numbers. I'm going to give some of the teams, as they like to call it, in the hunt. Those mean they're outside of the top five. Give you some of these numbers. Are going to match up and see what they look like in terms of the standings. We'll let Charles get in his thoughts a little bit on the SWAC in terms of softball. We'll let AD Drew give us a little update in terms of MEAC, and maybe give a little update of some of those independents, whether it's Tennessee State, A&T, or Hampton. He can pull out his choice or maybe pick one of them, and we'll give some updates there. Before we get into those matchups, some of the things that took place this weekend and who's getting it done, I wanted to talk about those teams in the hunt. We'll get into the top five in a minute, but I want to give those that are in the hunt a little bit of love. First team in the hunt, just being able to get into the hunt lineup, is Alabama A&M. The Lady Bulldogs over there in Huntsville, are sitting at 15-14 overall, 6-6 in the conference race, 45.57 points there in the hunt. The next team is a team relatively close to Alabama A&M, if you would have it and think about it. It's Tennessee State up there in Nashville. As an independent, 14-8 in one tie, which is always interesting. We'll have to dig in that for you later. 5-6 in the conference race over there in the Ohio Valley. They come in with 48.01 points. You have Norfolk State out of the MEAC, 14-15, but 5-4, 51.7 points in terms of the total points they have. Then we go into the SWAC with Bethune-Cookman sitting at 10-24, but they're 8-3 in the conference race, 52.37. And the last team that is in the hunt, that's just before, would be 6 if you would have it going that deep, would be North Carolina Central, the Eagles, 10-22 overall, 8-0 in the conference race. So really in the hunt for things in the MEAC, that is sizing up to be interesting because one of the top teams in there is Morgan State. And I'll let you know where they are in terms of the analytics here shortly. But that softball game will be played, Charles. Think about this, and AD Drew, will be the last MEAC series between those two teams will line up. So can they fight it out where that series will become interesting? I think is something to think about. So with that being said, I'm going to go to you, Charles, first before we get in this top five. What are your thoughts on the East? I see, you have 3 teams that are really in the hunt there. I think all of them at 8-4. Right? Yeah. FAMU sitting at 8-4. And that's tied with Alabama State as well as Bethune-Cookman. So the Florida schools, as you think about, they play a lot of softball. They're doing their thing in there. But even Alabama A&M and Jackson State, that you saw Alabama A&M in the hunt, are sitting at 6-6. So they're just 2 games back. So a lot of teams in it. But you go to the West, you see Prairie View that has jumped out there. Remember, Prairie View had the outstanding tournament, was able to turn it on, and really got it done in the SWAC tournament championship last year as they took down Alabama State in just a amazing facet last year. They are 12-0 in this early part of the hunt in the race. Grambling is behind them, not too far back, a 3-game set, though, at 9-3, and then the rest of the teams were losing records, if you would, in regards in the conference. So, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of what's going on in the softball? Any matchups that stood out to you this past weekend, or matchups that you look up coming into this weekend?
Well, here's the thing that jumps out at me. Watch the synergy that we'll see with regards to softball to baseball. Top three teams in the SWAC East: Alabama State, Florida A&M, the Bethune-Cookman, all at 8-4. We'll talk a little bit about it on the baseball side, but there's some synergy in regards to these top three teams on the softball side, and then synergy on the SWAC West as well. No hotter team in softball right now than the Prairie View A&M Lady Panthers. 12-0 in conference play. They've won 9 in a row. But the synergy, again, with baseball, Grambling right behind it, 9-3 in conference. They've won 4 in a row. Texas Southern right behind Grambling. They have won 5 in a row. So you got those top 3 teams in the SWAC East, top 3 teams in the SWAC West. Let's see how that synergy relates to baseball as well, because they're playing some great softball over there in the East with regards to those 3 schools, FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, and Alabama State. Same thing in the West, Prairie View, Grambling, Texas Southern, 1, 2, 3 stacked up on each other. So great softball being played. Got some hot teams, especially over there in the West.
I like the way you did that with the synergy between baseball and softball. And you're right, I didn't think about that. But now I think when we go to the other side after the break, people see the synergy that you're referencing. With that, let's give a little love to the MEAC. AD Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of what's shaking out in the MEAC? I know there's 2 teams that are undefeated in the MEAC in regards to what that looks like. And I told you they're on maybe a collision course. But with that being said, this past weekend, a game or 2, or this upcoming game, which direction are you going in terms of softball in the MEAC?
I just want to talk about it. Morgan State, number 1 team in the BCSN ranking. I mean, they're only 1/2 game. Excuse me, they're 1 game behind Central. Central 8-0, Morgan State 7-0 when it comes to the conference race. So if this plays out like you said, Dr. Cavil, man, who's not going to want to be at that game? Do you know what the location of that is? Is that in Baltimore or is that in Durham?
I think it's in Durham.
Okay. And while we look that up, I want to talk about Prairie View. Prairie View has won. They won, like you said, Charles, they're 12-0 this year. Let's not forget, they won 9 of their last 10 regular season games last year. So the back half of last year for Prairie View softball and the opening of this year, I mean, what a tremendous run Prairie View has been on in the SWAC, So it's almost, I hate to say it, Charles, it's almost Jackson State-ish. This run that Prairie View has been on.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're going through undefeated right now. They're getting pushed. They're getting challenged, but they're answering the challenge every time. Sure. And as great of a run as Jackson State had in basketball, can somebody get through an entire softball season undefeated?
That's tough, though.
That is tough.
Great point.
Yeah. Just because of the number of games that you have to play. We saw Jackson State baseball do it a couple of years ago. So can softball do the same thing?
I like that. And then during the COVID year, you saw 2 times on the men's side get it done. Talking about Jackson State, it was Prairie View. It was Prairie View on the men's side during that COVID year. So great year. It is. I knew it was North Carolina. It's not Durham, but it's actually North Carolina. Cary. Cary, North Carolina is that last home set. The Morgan State will be on the road at North Carolina Central. So it'll be interesting to keep our eyes in terms of what the fights looks like. You teased it out a little bit, so you stole a little bit of thunder with Morgan State being at the top. But let me give you the top 5 officially. At number 5 is Alabama State, 19-16, 8-4, 54-56. That's all right, Drew. I know you get excited. This is number 4 is Florida A&M, 15-14, 8-4, 56.11. You know I like to go in descending order. You got to tease it out for the people. And number 3, Grambling State.
My bad.
23 12-1. No big deal. That's what we do. 9-3, 59.55 points. They were previously 2, so they fell a slot. Guess who moved up a slot? That Prairie View A&M, Lady Panthers down there that are playing some good softball, move up in the ranking from 3 to 2 as they jump in at 13 and 15 overall, but 12 and 0, as we said, in terms of conference race. There's a wide gap now between second and third. It'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out with teams continuing to move, as they're at 68.33 versus the 3 team at 59.5, which is Grambling. We'll see what that looks like when they match up later on. And as Drew said, the number 1 team is Morgan State, 16 and 12, 7 and 0. They're hot, 73.17, as they remain number 1. So they're holding on to it. How long can they hold on to that number 1 spot? Remember, this is not a poll ranking where you take voters that vote into the poll to tell you their opinion. Which is a little more subjective. This is not quite as subjective because it's the computer rankings. Obviously, data in, data out, whatever it is. But it's the data that gives you this analysis here. So I thought it was important to share a little bit of that and have y'all make sure you check it out on Sunday. We tend to get the latest because ours that he does and reruns the data actually has the Sunday scores in there. The show comes on, and sometimes baseball is slower about getting the information out. So they do the updates with certainly Friday and Saturday in regards to what that looks like. With that being said, we'll take our second break, come back on the other side, give you a little more baseball talk as we get into it. Man, the baseball in the SWAC is fascinating, it's deep, and boy, week to week you have key matchups based on what took place the week before, and we'll talk a little bit about that on the other side. Stick with us after this second break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food?
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment. We have none other than AD Drew. Since we're talking a little bit of baseball, he's pinch hitting. Coming in out of the bullpen, and he looks ready. Look at the
ball. That's a ball. That's a ball. You didn't come to a complete stop. I'm letting my emotions get involved.
Hey, Charleston.
Hey, at least you didn't call a pitch clock violation on me.
Yeah, that'd be real modern for the game. Let's get into the Colonial and let you know what's going on there. Unfortunately for A&T Aggies, they lost 2 out of 3 to UNC Wilmington. So that pushed them back a little further down the standings as they fall to number 7th in the standings. They're 6-6, so they're 500 in terms of Colonial Conference race, in terms of what that looks like. They did get one of the games, which is good, the middle game there. They sit at 13-14 overall as they look to try to get it done. When you talk about other teams out of the Northeastern Conference, they didn't fare quite as well either in terms of some of those matchups there, in terms of Maryland Eastern Shore, to give you some updates there. Coppin, as they continue to fight and try to get some things done. Norfolk State as well. struggling a little bit in terms of the Northeast Conference. Some of those matchups on Friday to give you just the start of how things took place. Norfolk State did get a game over Stone Hill, 6-3 in terms of that matchup. Delaware State fell hard to Fairleigh Dickinson, 26-8. In regards to Maryland Eastern Shore, got a game against Merrimack, 6-5 in terms of the matchups as they got into those series. In terms of where they are in the standings of the Northeast Conference, give you a little update there. You have the top-ranked Coppin State. As we told you last week, they're still hovering in that spot. You know, they take the top 6 previously in the Northeast, and we'll keep that updated and see what they're going to do this year. In that 6th spot right now is Coppin State at 4-5. They won 2 straight games, so they got out of there and got some victories in that. They're actually tied with Merrimack, and guess who? Norfolk State also sit at 4-5 in terms of winning that race. Sitting below them is Maryland Eastern Shore, 4-8, and Delaware State sitting in at 2-10 in terms of the Northeastern race. Let's get into the SWAC where the fire is. One of the things I'll kind of set up on this is we were over there, Drew, you talked about how things were going in the gym. So, you know, we had started the game over there in McGregor Park in terms of baseball, getting in there. Charles actually stood for a little longer in the game, so made it even challenging as he tried to make it over there. I knew better. I was like, no, I'm getting here over. So when I left, it was the 3rd inning, it was 2-2. Texas Southern had already hit 2 home runs, essentially to tie the game up in regards to the look like. Prairie View was winning the game in the 9th, but home run for Texas Southern as they get it done in the bottom of the 9th, a walk-off as they scored 2 to win the game 10-9. It was one of those type of games. TSU had 7 home runs in the game as they brought out the bats to get it done, which meant they had the rubber match. So they took 2 out of 3 from Prairie View in terms of that, which allowed Grambling with a great weekend to actually jump above them in terms of where they are in the standing. But before we get too far with that, let me tell you what happened in terms of the rundowns of those games taking place. Alabama State and Alabama A&M, as you had the rivalry game starting on Friday. Alabama State took it to Alabama A&M. They started off pretty hot, but they've fallen on hard times. We'll talk about that a little more as they fall 11-3. Jackson State, surprise, Valley. We talked about last week that Jackson State had a chance to get right and wanted to sweep. Charles said, hey, this is a rivalry game, maybe not. And sure enough, Valley gets the first game 14-13. Prairie View falls to Texas Southern on the road 8-4 for their first conference loss as they took it to Texas Southern. We told you what happened culminating in the 3rd game. Southern 14-4 against Alcorn State, and FAMU defeats Bethune-Cookman to open things up 7-5. Again, those were the Friday scores. On Saturday, where it gets even more interesting as you enter these 2-3 game series, you have Grambling as they hit off their first 3 games against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and they actually played 2 on Saturday. Grambling wins the first one 8-2 over Pine Bluff. Jackson State bounces back and gets the game against Valley 18-7. Prairie View bounces back and gets one against Texas Southern 10-5. Alabama State continues to dominate Alabama A&M as they win 17-9, I should say. Grambling State takes the second game doubleheader on Saturday against Arkansas Pine Bluff 19-6. Alcorn surprises Southern for a lot of people.
Whoa.
Win there 15-12. They take one away. And Bethune-Cookman bounces back and gets it against FAMU 9-2, which means you have some rubber matches for Jackson State Valley. Prairie View, Texas Southern, Alcorn Southern, FAMU, and Bethune-Cookman mean you had those matchups. It'd be interesting to see what happens on Sunday. Again, I told you what happened on Sunday for Texas Southern is they take 2 out of 3. With that being said, final scores of this set, Jackson State takes the series 2 out of 3, defeating Mississippi Valley 8-6. Bethune-Cookman takes 2 out of 3 from FAMU, knocks them off the undefeated races. They were just rolling down the road. Bethune-Cookman says not so fast. That was a home game, so the rematch will be interesting as they travel in the second half of the SWAC. Bethune-Cookman, the Wildcats get it done against the Rattlers 6-3. Southern bounces back, and they do get the series taking 2 out of 3 as they defeat Alcorn State Braves 6-1. Alabama State sweeps Alabama A&M 6-1, and Grambling 11-1 over Arkansas Pine Bluff. So they bring out the brooms on the road in terms of what's going on in Pine Bluff and Arkansas. As I told you, Texas Southern walk-off gets it done against Prairie View 11-10, sends the Panthers home heartbroken in terms of what that looks like. So as we get into those standings for the SWAC and let you know what that looks like, Grambling is on the top of the West now as Prairie View falls to the second slot. Grambling is 8-1 in the conference race. That's 12-15 overall. Prairie View 7-2 at 10-8. Just behind them is Texas Southern. Southern tied at 5-4 in terms of those teams at the top of the Western Division. In the Eastern Division, you have three teams all tied at 7-2. Same teams that you saw on the softball that Charles told you about earlier, which is the same thing you saw with the Western Division with Prairie View and Grambling. Essentially, in those two teams are swapped, if you would, in terms of softball. But on the baseball side, Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman, and FAMU are all tied at 7-2. Alabama State with a sweep have 3-game win streak. Bethune-Cookman getting the last 2 out of 3 there, have a 2-game win streak. FAMU falls to 7-2 as they lost the last 2 in those series. You have Jackson State, Alabama A&M, and Mississippi Valley sitting at 3-6, 2-7, and 1-8 respectively. I'll talk about that because that 4th spot will be interesting to see what comes down between Jackson State, Alabama A&M. Remember, Alabama A&M took the early series, taking 2 out of 3 from Jackson State. It'll be interesting to see how much they may come back in the second half of the season. What we there. Let me go to you, A.D. Drew. A lot of baseball talk there. Which direction you want to go in terms of what is taking place in week number 3 in terms of SWAC baseball?
I'll spend our show on Sunday trying to figure out what was the more surprising result. Valley getting 1 versus Jackson State, or Alcorn getting 1 versus Southern. And for Jackson State, needed that sweep. They really did to need that sweep, especially considering what Alabama A&M did, losing 2 out of 3 in their series. So Jackson State was able to leapfrog Alabama A&M this particular weekend, but they've got a long way to go if they're trying to catch one of those top 3 teams who are all sitting at 7-2. Even a sweep next weekend would not allow them to catch one of those teams if one of those teams should get swept next weekend. And to make it worse for Jackson State, they've got FAMU coming to town. So just looking at how these two teams are playing this year, the chances of Jackson State getting a sweep against FAMU are going to be slim. So you know FAMU's going to get at least 1 out of there. The numbers say they'll get 2, but the FAMU's going to at least get 1 out of Jackson State. Where does that leave Jackson State and Alabama A&M, who will face each other? I believe in 2 weeks when those two teams face each other. Not this weekend series, but next weekend's series. So that's going to be interesting. And just quickly on the West, I believe Texas Southern and Southern play each other this weekend. One of those two teams will come out. No, I checked that. That's next weekend when they play each other. Texas Southern had Grambling this weekend. So as much as we have this weekend, the interesting stuff looking ahead is going to be next weekend, because that's going to tell us how the conference races are going to really shape up. But I am looking forward to Texas Southern and Grambling this upcoming weekend, Dr. Cavil.
But to your point, it's Texas Southern and Grambling, but guess what? It's Prairie View and Southern. So yeah, it's still interesting.
That was
Charles,
the one. That was what it was. I knew Southern had somebody.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna echo a couple things that you said, AD. I think the fact that Valley was able to take 1 from Jackson State and Jackson State needing that sweep this past weekend is something that jumped out at me. But it was the way that they lost. I mean, they gave up 14 runs to Mississippi Valley State. So I immediately go to the stats to take a look and see what happened within that game. And this was even when Valley had committed 3 errors in the game. So that concerns me with regards to Jackson State's pitching staff. Currently, they're fourth in the SWAC, giving up 6.5 runs a game, but giving up 14 runs to Mississippi Valley State, that jumped out. That kind of concerned me. And like you said, when you have Alabama State, which is hitting on all cylinders, Bethune-Cookman, which took 2 of 3 with FAMU, and FAMU sitting in front of you, this weekend series with FAMU is going to be huge for Jackson State. Quite honestly, to just get back in things, they need a sweep, and that's not very likely with regards to playing a tough, hardened FAMU baseball team with a pitcher like Hunter Beach sitting around somewhere within the rotation over the weekend. So that jumps out. I thought it was a misprint when I looked and saw Southern drop one to Alcorn. To be honest with you, I just could not believe it. We're talking about that blue blood program dropped one to Alcorn, which, quite honestly, their baseball program hasn't been up to par with regards to in the East. So those were a couple of things that jumped out at me. Can't say enough. That Prairie View Texas Southern series this weekend, Texas Southern, for them to come back the way they did in the rubber match this past Sunday with a walk-off. My goodness, that was tremendous, and it elevated Grambling. Now I have to start paying a lot more attention to this Grambling State baseball team. They're leading the SWAC West right now. We're leading the SWAC West with regards to a great Prairie View baseball team, Texas Southern baseball team, and at some point, Southern is going to put their foot on the gas at some point. So very interesting with regards to Grambling, now on top of the SWAC West standings.
And y'all had some great points you make there in terms of, oddly enough, as they talking about basketball, UConn, he did put in the blue blood lexicon, or is that red, black, and green? With that being said, I get your point. But I think that's one of the unique things in terms of Jackson State and Southern. Not that they're not necessarily at the top. We saw Southern kind of struggle early, and they were able to turn it on, but do they get themselves into the hole? As you talked about Jackson State, one of the things I've noticed is just how they've struggled on the pitching side.
Yeah.
And in regards to Southern, you tend to see them fielding better than they are. They're pretty low in terms of fielding percentage, and they're not hitting very well and not pitching. So that is something to keep your eyes on, because those are not necessarily things you can turn on. It's different when you kind of just lose maybe close games. You put it out there, but they're not really playing good baseball. The thing that you have to link about Southern is the fact that in Jackson State, it's a long season in regards to this being just the first half. Drew, you want to jump back in there with something?
I'm going to ask a question because I know it's time for us to go to break. I'm going to ask this question before, and then maybe we can come back and answer it on the other side. But
sure, is
it me, or is it kind of some bad baseball in general being played, not just in the SWAC, but among our black schools, our HBCUs? And I've got a little bit of a theory behind it. And I'm wondering if we're starting to feel the after effects of COVID. I'm gonna leave it right there. We'll talk about it on the other side, and I'll tell you what.
Let's go to break, and we will talk about it on the other side. At least give you a chance to think about, because we might need to take a deeper dive and have a segment on that in regards to baseball and what may be taking place in regards to some of the hitting. I've seen it around, and maybe it's still people recovering from the early part of the season as it's cool and folks still need a chance to warm up. So good point when you talk about that.
Baseball awareness.
We'll be right back after this. Yeah, we'll be right back after this last break. We'll come back on the other side and kind of sew things up as we get into a couple of other news that I wanted to get out there. And we'll make sure that we give you some of the games to watch this weekend, because things actually start on Thursday because of Easter weekend. Stick with us. Be right back after this quick break. We'll come back on the other side, give you some last updates, and close out the show.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisine.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Press the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Charles, I know you had some thoughts on that, so I wanted to kind of give you a chance to respond to the concern that Drew brought out there, rightfully so. Is it COVID, or do you see something else that is maybe bigger than COVID that you have some concerns on right now, Charles?
For me, it's a decline over time in the fundamentals of baseball. It drives me nuts to see multiple era baseball games, and for me, it's a lot of the minutia that you see with regards to a game being played, especially with regards to giving extra outs. And it's one thing to give an extra out, but to compound it by throwing the ball away. You know, guys are going to make mistakes in the field and things of that nature, but it's sort of speeding up your fielding process, and you compound one error with another error. That being said, it's we talk about it all the time in other sports in terms of football acumen or basketball acumen, football IQ, things of that nature. And for me, it's been baseball IQ. You know, when you miss a cutoff man egregiously.
Base running errors.
Base running errors is a big one. And as much running as they do in the SWAC and in the HBCU baseball in general, to still see the base running errors that happen during the course of the game, that where you give an out away or you don't have to give an out away. Those are the things that, it is the fundamentals, and it is compounding errors where you just don't have to do it. Those are the things that really get under my craw as a baseball fan.
Yeah, and kind of where I was going,
popping up the bunts and those kind of things. Let me give you this. Baseball starts on Thursday this week because of Easter weekend. So you have 4 games: Bethune-Cookman at Alabama A&M, FAMU at Jackson State that y'all spoke about earlier, Arkansas, Pine Bluff at Alcorn State. It'll be interesting there. Somebody is going to be able to get 2 out of 3 and kind to get maybe some momentum. And then you have a big matchup with Texas Southern and Grambling in regards to what that looks like on Thursday. When you get into Friday, you have all 6 teams playing on that Friday, opening things up. Bethune-Cookman at Alabama A&M, Southern at Prairie View that I mentioned to you, Valley at Alabama State. To add those teams that did not start on Thursday, obviously Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Alcorn State, FAMU, Jackson State, Texas Southern, and Grambling. Saturday, you'll have teams closing it up as they get in with 6 more teams. Some of them doing their 3rd game by now, some of them in their 2nd matchup. As you know, you close things with all 6 of them playing again. On Sunday, you only have your 2 games, teams that did not start on Sunday, which will be Mississippi Valley at Alabama State and Southern at Prairie View. So 4 days of baseball in the SWAC will be interesting to see what goes on there. Before we close up, I did want to get this out there. Shout out to the lab listeners in regards to Emma Price, Lonnie Shaw, gave some shout out to early Edwin D. Moore, G. Boom Holly, Carol Keelam, Wendy Jenkins Bishop, Karen Griffin, HBCU Heritage Center checking us out. Michael Lee is in the building. Chuck Hunt, Lonnie Shaw, Chad Cooper always showing up. Jerome Jeep Sutton in the building. Silas Edward McMorris, Willie Smith. Thanks for joining us and getting your updates on HBCU world out there, as well as Theron Waters getting up the updates. Wells Fargo to sponsor MEAC gives 6-figure donation to the MEAC courtesy of MEACsports.com. The MEAC has announced Wells Fargo as a new corporate sponsor starting with the 2023 MEAC basketball tournament. As part of this new partnership, Wells Fargo gave $100,000 to the MEAC Foundation. We talked about that during the MEAC basketball tournament, that the foundation began, and you see that they have funds getting in here with this particular Wells Fargo sponsorship. Quote, I could not be any more excited to have Wells Fargo on the board as a corporate sponsor, end quote. MEAC Commissioner Sonny still says, quote, Wells Fargo commitment to HBCU is vital to the conference, but more importantly, the fact that they are committed to our member institutions, students beyond their years on campus is paramount. We have always said that the MEAC is educating student athletes for the game of life, and Wells Fargo shares in that vision, end quote. So to give you some updates there, fascinating to see what's going on. As you had Gigi Dixon, Wells Fargo's head of external engagement of diverse segments, representation, and inclusion, said the MEAC commitment to excellence in everything they do to support the well-being of student athletes on and off the court. Our playing field is a mission that resonates with our bank. Also, this is the start of our engagement with the MEAC, and well, we will also look forward to being at the start of the engagement with the MEAC. We also look forward to being at the forefront, I should say, of adding in the strengthening and growth of each of the member institutions and surrounding university communities, end quote. Big one that just dropped today, SWAC Football Media Day, July 25th. It is going back to Birmingham, as you know, a football media day on Tuesday, July 25th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. That will be in Sheraton, Birmingham. So it'll be fascinating. We plan to be there and bring you your daily dose and live updates on what's taking place in regards to what's there. Drew said something a little earlier about supporting Black College Sports Network and small businesses. Obviously, we have the corporate entities that we put out there, but we also love to support smaller businesses, particularly HBCU Black businesses that are out there. We have a 300 to 500 special for the year. We're taking the first 30 folks that take businesses to take advantage of this, and you will get this. You do 300, 500 for the year, and you can run your ads, and we'll support you on the Black College Sports Network. So make sure you contact us at the Black College Sports and Network, my JBN, my BCSN. Download that, continue to support. You can get the email information, and we'll make sure that you get additional context. But go to the website, BCSN, so you can get all that information out there in terms of what that looks like. That'll do it for us. Wanted to get in some good information there. Show packed, giving you your baseball and some softball updates. Come back on Thursday. See if we can get you some interviews. Certainly give you updates on the SIAC Division II and NIA programs. With that being said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. His Mike is on assignment, and we have none other than A.D. Drew, Assistant Professor, tenure track. Check it out. Again, we want to thank you for listening. Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As you know, every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll be back on Thursday with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as DrKenyattacavil. Make sure you check out Carlos' show this Saturday as he will give it to you on Wednesday. Tomorrow, you have O&G Strike Zone as they'll give you the latest updates of what's going on in FAMU and Tallahassee, as they like to say, the highest of 7 hills. It almost hurt me to say that, but wanted to put it out there for the brothers over there in the orange and green as they do it the way they do it. Obviously, as we working through it, don't forget the pregame show. Charles is bringing it back. Make sure you know. It'll let you know what that looks like. Stick with us. As some of y'all were getting a little nervous, we're going to do what we do. Just sit back, relax. We're going to make sure that you get your information on the Tigers of Jackson State up there. I love, as they like to say. Check out 1876 Sports and Culture. Prairie View updates there. Told you about Carlos with the Southern updates as we continue to give you those. And then, obviously, you tie everything up in a bow after each Sunday dinner and have long church service. Come back that evening. We'll get you ready for the week. And make sure you close out everything as you get started as well with Bryant and AD of SportsWrap. As we get going, we'll have some news and Saturday updates as we continue to get going. And we'll give you some of these spring updates. So stick around and make sure you see that the next 3 Saturdays, we'll have that overtime, HBCU overtime coming to you on Saturday as well. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Drew?
Lecture.
Dismissed.